In the last few weeks, we have watched our government and our representatives attempt to pass various legislation in an effort to curb the effects of the novel coronavirus. Some of these bills were written to free up much-needed medical supplies or encourage research into vaccinations and cures. Other legislation was proposed to require companies to produce masks and respirators and to remove bureaucratic barriers for state and local governments to locate and procure them for their hospitals and first responders. The president invoked some of the wartime powers of his office to speed up processes and to streamline the government's COVID-19 responses. Throughout this crisis, we have been given an unusually clear view of how our government currently functions and how it could drastically improve. For example, the largest and most expensive proposal so far has been the economic stimulus bill. This bill was first proposed to the Senate on behalf of the White House last week as a $1 trillion relief package that carried provisions to offer financial support directly to businesses and workers who were affected by our government's instructions. Within a few days, the bill was amended to include student loan assistance, expansion of unemployment benefits, and foreclosure and eviction suspensions. Money was set aside to increase food stamps and welfare payments and buy medical supplies for hospitals around the country. But as the bill failed to pass, it also began to include amendments that are unrelated to our economic relief. Provisions were added that included airline emission standards, tax credits for solar panels, postal service debt relief, and even voter registration requirements. The bill grew almost to $2 trillion, paid for by the taxpayers, and over 1,000 pages. Meanwhile, the economy has not been stimulated, and the people have not been relieved. In fact, in the week that this bill has been debated, hundreds of thousands of Americans have lost their jobs, and thousands more have contracted the disease. Most Americans are asking themselves why this is happening. Why can't our representatives just pass a bill to help us and debate all this other stuff some other time? Why does one bill, or any bill, have to be so complicated? The answer is the LRA. The LRA stands for the Legislative Reorganization Act of 1946 that was revised in 1970. Title III of the LRA is the Regulation of Lobbying Act, which required lobbyists to register with and report activities to the Clerk of the House. The LRA of 1970 created a significant increase in the lobbying by corporations and special interest groups. Since then, because of their ability to contribute to campaigns, these lobbyists have bought enormous influence over legislation and the legislators who have used those contributions to buy long terms in office. The Regulation of Lobbying Act that was supposed to make it more difficult but was repealed by the Lobbying Disclosures Act of 1995, which was then amended by the Lobbying Disclosure Technical Amendments of 1998, and twice more in 2006 and 2007. Are you confused yet? These are just the rules about who makes the rules. So a week ago, when an economic stimulus package was proposed to combat COVID-19, all of these amendments that don't seem related to economic relief started to be added in. Layers and layers and layers. The legislators know that this bill is important and must be passed quickly. Meanwhile, the people have had to wait while their representatives debate these amendments that don't have anything to do with the people or the coronavirus. This happens in Washington every day, with almost every bill. But this time, we are all watching, we are all waiting, and we are all finally asking questions. If the laws governing the legislators are so complex and confusing, how can we expect the legislation they create to be simple? Meanwhile, the people have had to wait while their representatives debate these amendments that don't have anything to do with the people or the coronavirus. This happens in Washington every day with almost every bill. But this time, we are all watching, we are all waiting, and we are all finally asking the right questions. If the people can't be heard over the lobbyists and special interest groups, are they being represented at all? The simple answer is no. That is why I've long called for one-issue bills, where each issue is decided on its own merits, without outside influence and without special interest influence. If the current economic stimulus bill was proposed this way, it would be hundreds of bills that we could all understand and demand our representatives to vote on individually. This process would in fact create the level of accountability to the people that the Constitution intended. One bill would be whether to issue $1,200 to each American or $2,500 to each American, and nothing else. Another bill could be whether to offer small loans to small businesses or not, and nothing else. Legislating this way allows your representative to actually get things done, and it allows you to hold them to their votes. But it also means you get to see where the money comes from and where the money goes. That is why this process is not done. The economic stimulus bill was a simple idea: help Americans who did nothing wrong to keep their homes, their businesses, and their jobs. But instead it turned into a 1,000-page, week-long debate that has not done any of those things yet and is now still pending the vote of the House. But why isn't it just that simple, we might ask? Because if it were simple, we might start thinking that anyone could run for elected office, that the average citizen that lives on an average income could actually represent our people in government. Our representatives are supposed to be our lobbyists, not bound by a 75-year series of amended and repealed acts, but rather by their oath of office. The American people are supposed to be the special interest group that our representatives serve. I can guarantee you right here and right now, I will represent you and be bound by my oath, my constituents, and the Constitution.